think this is gonna work.
Well, nobody tailed us. You hope.
The woman was in the other room. She saw everything. Everything. Nobody knew about her. They still don't.
Rumor, grand jury to hold special session. Hint, slain gang lord's widow may testify in graft fraud.
I'll promise her protection. I'll offer her relocation. She'll talk jazz to me. I'd like a private compartment, please.
He never saw her face. Just keep your eye on the cop. They'll be on the train together someplace.
So we expecting company?
Gentleman's lost a briefcase. We thought the red cap might have put it in here by mistake.
I'm sure it's in this car someplace.
Maybe not.
Got a chance. He'll be back, won't he?
Yeah.
You don't look like somebody who takes the train.
You know, you'll get there just as fast as you're tonight.
He's a train robber.
What would I want with a train?
Do you have a gun?
All robbers carry guns, man.
I'm gonna change compartments, okay?
Nobody loves a fat man.
But it's grosser. I don't think I like you.
The weekend in Paris is off.
You make me sick to my stomach.
Well, use your own sink.
Excuse me, just a wire to the home office.
One of them has an automatic weapon. Maybe they both do. I don't know.
I'll bet you can keep a secret, can't you?
Suppose I ask you for your help.
I have a business proposition you might be interested in. We offer you a fortune.
All you have to do is point her out.
That one guy.
I didn't know I'd made that much of an impression.
This is my life we're giving.
This train's headed straight for the cemetery.
When this train reaches its destination, there are going to be some people waiting for you.
We'll get her whether you give it to us or not.
I'm going to try my best to avoid getting into spoiler territory with these two flicks. I hate movie twists being ruined for people. So, I don't want to be the one to do that. Back in the golden age of Hollywood, movie audiences would walk into a theater, usually owned by a movie studio. They'd buy their ticket and sit down. They'd watch a short film, a cartoon, a newsreel, a few previews, and then a double feature. Going to the cinema, you would get a full afternoon or evening of programmed films to watch. That sure sounds like getting a lot more for your money than just seeing some crappy 3D effects. The main film of the double feature would be known as the A. A Pictures would have the bigger movie stars and have more expensive production values. The second flick in the double feature, usually about an hour long, would be the B. That would obviously be the much cheaper of the two. They had lower paid actors, would use leftover sets, and sometimes fill in the gaps in the story with old stock footage. These B movies didn't have high expectations quality-wise, but they were an easy way for studios to economize their resources. Because they were so cheap to make, they could turn a tidy profit for the studios. It also allowed studios to develop new talent and churn out a steady supply of product to audiences. I've heard that the production of B movies made up nearly 80% of the cinematic output in the span of 40 years. Most of these B movies were pretty bad, and have long been forgotten. But there were a few that were actually very good, and have emerged from their seedy roots to eventually become appreciated and admired. Like The Narrow Margin. The Narrow Margin was a quintessential B movie at its time of release. The bulk of the story takes place on a rumbling locomotive, carrying hard-boiled cop Detective Brown, who's assigned to escort a woman that's gonna spill the beans against the criminal underworld. Obviously the bad guys don't want her singing to the grand jury about all their dirty deals, so they set out to bump her off. Unfortunately, they don't know what this dame looks like, but they have ID'd the cop who's trying to protect her. After killing his partner, The Hoods hop aboard the departing train and begin eyeballing for her, watching every move Brown makes, hoping he'll lead them right to her. Now, Brown is really behind the 8 ball. He's consumed with guilt over the death of his partner. He's got to avoid these button men who are gunning for her, and he's got to handle this hysterical skirt who's flapping her gums and really driving Brown bonkers. Can Brown get this pigeon to L.A. to testify? Or will both of them get a big dose of lead poisoning before they can get off this train? The Narrow Margin is a really entertaining movie. The whole premise of a cop protecting a witness is an old setup that's been done countless times. But what sets this film apart is the whole thing taking place on a moving train. It's a very suspenseful story, which got nominated for an Oscar, by the way. And it milks this whole cat and mouse game for everything it's worth. The film was shot in just a couple days with a very small budget, and knowing that makes the final product even more impressive. Director Richard Fleischer, son of the famous animator Max Fleischer, keeps the momentum going throughout the entire film. At a brisk 70-minute running time, there's really no dead weight anywhere. Fleischer is really able to sell the idea that this is all unfolding on a moving train, with pretty good-looking rear-screen projections out the windows, moving shadows inside the cars, and the use of sound effects. There's no musical soundtrack to the film at all. All we hear throughout the film are the rumblings of the locomotive. Blowing steam, train cars grinding into each other. It really adds to the tense mood and the claustrophobic atmosphere to the whole thing.
Mr. Brown, I have a business proposition you might be interested in.
One thing that always surprises me every time I see this movie is some of the handheld camera work being used. I don't expect to see that in older films like this, so it's kind of jarring. Particularly, there's a raw fight between Brown and a baddie in a compartment of the train that is filmed all handheld. They don't bother trying to orchestrate it in any way or pull the camera back. It's as if the cameraman is crammed in that room with these guys, just catching what he can for us. I couldn't help but wonder if this scene had any inspiration to the famous train fight in From Russia with Love 11 years later. There's one particular much talked about really cool edit of Marie Windsor filing her nails, dissolving into the locomotive wheels. There's really some inventive stuff here. This might have been a B movie, but Fleischer didn't phone this in at all. Charles McGraw, who at this point had played many tough guy roles in small pictures, fits into the role of Walter Brown like a glove. He looks tough in his trench coat, the hat, lighting his cigarettes. He's like the quintessential image of the tough detective in film noir. He might not be as recognizable as some A-list actors, but he does just fine here. Plus, the story gives him some added dimensions of being tempted by a bribe, guilt over the death of his partner, and a light playfulness during his encounters with Miss Sinclair and her son. It's a nice break in between getting back to the tension and putting on his grim look. Out of the entire cast, Marie Windsor's Miss Neal is probably the most memorable character. As if Brown didn't have enough to deal with, she just rides him and rides him with all kinds of these colorful exchanges you'd expect to hear in a film noir. She has some great hard-boiled lines of dialogue, and the back-and-forth bickering between her and Brown are a lot of fun to listen to and watch.
From me. Shut up! Not till I tell you something, you cheap badge pusher. When we started on this affair, you made it plenty clear I was just a job and no joy in it, remember?
Yeah, it still goes, double.
Okay, keep it that way. I don't care whether you dreamed up this gag or not. You're going right along with it, so don't go soft on me.
We don't really hear these kind of vibrant lines anymore. Every time he gets within her sights, she never stops complaining. If I had to deal with this chick, I probably would start reconsidering this gig. I don't want to go into much more. Needless to say, there are twists and surprises on these rails, and that's part of the fun of the film. I will say some of the bombshells that happen open up some questions about the logic of certain things. But because Fleischer keeps things moving at such a rapid pace, he doesn't give you much time to question it all. It's come to be regarded as a great example of film noir on the B level. I always wavered with referring to it as a film noir, though. It's got some film noir ingredients, but I don't know, I always thought of it as more of a straight thriller than a film noir. Still, however you want to define it, it seems like one of those movies that not a lot of people have seen. It's like this little gem that's just waiting for people to discover. It's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it. Nearly 40 years later, director Peter Hyams updates the story for the 90s. I remember when Narrow Margin first came out, and it seemed like most people had no idea that this was a remake of an earlier film. They shortened the title, dropping the from it. I'm not sure why remakes do that. The Flight of the Phoenix remake did the same thing. It's like having a "the" there might make audiences reluctant to see a movie, or I don't know, it looks hipper or something. Anyway, unlike the original, where we were dropped right into the detective's assignment of protecting this witness, here we see how things unfold from the beginning. Anne Archer, who, as usual, looks very good, is Carol Honeycutt, an unassuming innocent woman who is set up on a blind date with Michael, a mob accountant who's been getting creative with their books to line his own pockets. Carol witnesses the notorious gangster, Leo Watts, ending Michael's services. Scared, she hightails it out of town. Word gets back to Assistant DA Caulfield there's potentially someone to put Watts away, so he heads to British Columbia where Carol is hiding out. Unfortunately, Caulfield led the bad guys right to her doorstep, where they plan on doing bad guy stuff to her. With very little options, Caulfield and Carol hop on a train with the bad guys hot on their trail. And from there, we pick up where the original began. The bad guys wanting to bump off this woman witness, but have no idea what she looks like. But they do know Caulfield. The remake plays out very similar to the original, with a few tweaks added. The one thing the remake really has going for it are the actors. Hackman, Archer, James Sicking as the smooth-talking bad guy. His scene between him and Hackman is probably my favorite scene from the entire film. All the actors are very good with what they're given to play. Plus there's some welcome appearances by M. Emmett Walsh and the late J.T. Walsh in supporting parts. These two guys are always great to see in movies, and they're always memorable in whatever parts they landed. I really miss seeing J.T. pop up in movies nowadays. Like I said, the actors are all good with what they're given to play. But sadly, their characters here aren't as interesting as the ones on the older train. The biggest disappointments are Hackman and Archer. Both of them are good, but the scenes between Windsor and McGraw really crackled with the dialogue and attitude, the insults. Here, these two characters are just kind of blah. Hackman initially thinks of her as a mobster's girlfriend and doesn't respect her much.
What do you think she looks like?
I don't care what she looks like. I don't like the company she keeps.
That changes, however, when he learns she's just an innocent woman who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But even after he learns who she really is, there doesn't seem like much change in how they behave towards each other. She's portrayed in a much more sympathetic light, with having a kid, wanting to do the right thing, but being scared, not having any connection to the bad guys. But even with me feeling more sympathy for her character, it doesn't make her any more interesting or fun to watch as Windsor was. So Archer just kind of fills the role of being the damsel in distress. And she doesn't have as much of a dynamic chemistry with Caulfield as Windsor and McGraw did when they were locked in a room together. Hackman's Caulfield is just a good, honest guy. He doesn't really have any additional shadings as McGraw did. Detective Brown didn't like the witness before even meeting her. He's got his preconceived notions of what kind of woman she is.
What about this dame, Mr. Crystal Ball?
A dish.
What kind of a dish?
60-cent special. Cheap, flashy, strictly poison under the gravy.
Amazing. And how do you know all this?
Well, she was married to a hoodlum, wasn't she? What kind of a dame would marry a hood?
All kinds.
Oh, Gus, at heart, you're still a Boy Scout.
Then that's compounded with his guilt over the death of his partner, and the thought of his widow.
How do you expect me to feel? He was my partner for 6 years. He broke me in. Why, he and his wife and I were... What am I going to tell her?
Maybe giving this broad up isn't such a bad idea.
Sad, isn't it? Makes you wish you could do something.
So there's some added pressure on the character. The remake skips over that completely.
I'm sorry about your friend.
You ain't my friend. I just met him.
It's just never even presented as an option to Hackman's character, who we know is simply a good man wanting to do the right thing.
What I'm talking about is probably 10 times what you earn in a year, including whatever you steal on your expense account.
I don't steal. An honest man, I like that. So do I.
We know there's no way he'll accept this bribe. There's no added incentive hanging over his head to make pocketing the money just a little bit more tempting. From there, the film plays out pretty close to the original, with similar characters and predicaments that happen on board the train. There's extended action and suspense scenes that fill up the time, and unfortunately they do very little to amp up the suspense unfolding on the train. Some of these things go on too long and really start to push my suspension of disbelief with things. Also, there's one subplot of a crooked DA who sets this whole thing in motion, and that kind of just disappears. There's no real payoff to it, other than a tacked-on voiceover. I have to give the movie credit for not repeating the original's twist, but what the film does surprise us with, it's not as dramatic or unique as what the original pulled out of its hat. I'm giving a lot of criticisms here, but it's not a bad little thriller. There's enough here where I can enjoy watching it. Like I said, I like all the actors. The scenery is really beautiful on this train ride. It looks like a fun route to travel. Some of the night scenes with the lighting offer up a nice edgy mood. It has a nice haunting score by Bruce Broughton. Some of the stunts on the train during the climax, they're pretty good. Not that they're that easy to swallow, though. But comparing it to the first cinematic telling of this story, it doesn't offer up as much. With less tools, less money, less time, but much more creativity, the narrow margin was able to make this story a much more satisfying and entertaining experience.
It's a rotten detail. I don't like it. I didn't like it from the start. My partner's dead, and it's my fault. He's dead, and you're alive. Some exchange.